Thank you all for being here. Today is the talk is about how to simplify infinite banking for your spouse and win their support. So one of the most common questions that I get and that I hear is Jim, how do I explain infinite banking to my spouse without losing them halfway through the conversation? And that's normally when I have the husband or wife on a call and like a Zoom call, and we're going through their Q&A, right? Their questions and answers. And it's really their time to ask anything that they want to ask about infinite banking. I've seen these things. A lot of times they go down a similar pattern, but sometimes they're all over the board. So that time is really, it's really, if the spouse was on there, they would ask their own questions maybe. And sometimes in families, one spouse or the other takes care of all the money. I get it. That's cool. But I'm just saying that there are times where not having the spouse on there can be an issue. And when we, talking about money at home in general isn't easy. And let's be honest, most of us were never taught to have healthy conversations, especially about money. So when you bring up something to your spouse like infinite banking, it can sound complicated, unfamiliar, maybe even too good to be true. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever heard that. But here's the thing. If you want infinite banking really to work for you, your spouse has to be on board, period. Because when both partners understand why and they see the vision together and they understand controlling the banking function, it's when the strategy becomes most powerful. And then it's going to change your life. Like it changes most people's lives. So how do we get that to happen? Well, okay, so let's just talk about why this matters so much. Psychology tells us people don't fight about numbers, they fight about what money represents. To one spouse, money means security. We'll let you guess which one that typically that is, right? That's the female in the relationship. And the other means freedom. To another, it could mean power or even love. Money can mean love, right? But most couples, they have different scripts from their childhood. They have their different money monsters. And one grew up with scarcity, clutching every dollar. The other one grew up in abundance, spending freely. Now put them together and boom, you're going to have conflict. But here's the kicker, is research shows that couples who align financially have higher marital satisfaction, lower stress, and much lower chance of divorce. So it's not just about wealth, it's about your marriage, and building trust, alignment, and shared vision is really going to help you in the long run. So, when I used to do estate planning, the wife was always concerned that they were going to run out of money. And I remember this one couple, they had like $25 million in their account. And she just asked like 3 or 4 times in the hour review, like, what happens if we run out of money? How do we not run out of money? And the reality was they were spending about 33% of what they were earning. They weren't worried about, I wasn't worried about them running out of money. I was worried about what the government was going to do to them on estate tax, right? So estate planning is a different conversation than infinite banking. Estate tax, estate planning is how much are we going to leave our heirs, right? And infinite banking is not. So let's talk about the psychology of explaining infinite banking and not boring your spouse to death if they're not the ones that really handle the money or that's their role and responsibility in the relationship. So the first thing is simplify the language. Instead of, do not use phrases like whole life insurance, dividend paying, actuarial tables, paid up additions. That's a one-way ticket to glazing over their eyes, and they're going to check out, right? Well, they're going to just say, whatever you want, that's fine. You handle the money. Instead, say something like this. It's a system that lets us be the bank instead of renting money from one. Simple, clear, relatable, right? That's really what infinite banking is. 2, focus on the benefits that they care about. Don't talk about internal rates of return. Talk about safety. We always have guaranteed access to our money without begging a banker. Now, what that says to the spouse is, oh, if I need to buy something, I can. And talk about freedom that creates. We can finance dreams, not just debts. right? I mean, dreams of cash flow and businesses, and then avoid the firehouse of details. They don't need to know every rider dividend schedule on day one. Give them the why, not the 300-page manual. Like, tell them what time it is, not how to build the clock. And then number four is stories, not charts. And charts really don't move people, stories do. So tell them about the family who stopped fighting about money once they started using infinite banking, or the couple that finally bought the business they dreamed about because they had capital ready. Stories bypass resistance and they connect emotionally. And remember, money decisions are emotional first, logical second, even for men, right? It's emotional. We want something from that money decision. Okay, so some of the common pitfalls that I see couples making when they have these are the landmines that I see all the time. Okay, the first mistake is making a me strategy instead of a strategy. If you come at it like, hey, honey, I'm doing infinite banking, you've already lost. I mean, make it about the two of you. This is our system, our family bank. A lot of people that I work with call their infinite banking system their family bank, right? Because not only just for generation one, the husband and wife, but for the children, for the grandchildren, and who knows, as he had Nelson and Mary, then he had his children, then his grandchildren, his great grandchildren. And it just goes on and on. So that's part of the legacy talk. Now, again, typically one spouse, that legacy part of it is more important than the other part, than it is to the other spouse. I'm just saying that's the way that it happens. Don't talk about infinite banking at the wrong time. Like don't do it in the middle of paying bills when stress is high. That's like proposing marriage in the middle of a fight. It won't end well. Pick a relaxed, safe time. Maybe not right before you go to bed either, right? And use a mistake that people use is they use a scarcity language. They scarcity triggers fear. So instead of saying we're missing out if we don't do this, say this helps us control and build freedom together. That shifts the conversation from fear to vision. And I'm a big vision person. If you can see my board over here, I have my vision board and I have different categories and my goals in each of those categories. And I was just looking at it the other day, and there's so many of these things that I have accomplished, and I need to redo my board. And the way that I do it is everything that I want to be, everything I want to do, and everything I want to have in these different areas. So like travel, health and wellness, spirituality and mindfulness, business and finance, personal development, relationships. So maybe I haven't accomplished everything in that one, but all right. So that scarcity language is it creates fear. So don't do that. So the way to create alignment, and this works really in business or in relationships, is to create an alignment. The first step is to share the vision, not the mechanics. And so you might say something like, can you imagine that we have created through our own banking system 7 figures a year of passive cash flow where we're not exchanging time for money anymore? Now, all of a sudden, you want to see your spouse get excited, whether they work outside the home or not. They're going to get excited because they're going to, hey, tell me more about that. So, or something as simple as imagine being able to fund our kids' college or buy a property without asking permission from a bank. Paint the picture. The second thing, step two, would be to involve them in the dream. What would financial peace of mind look like to you, honey? When they answer, connect infinite banking to their vision. By being our own banker, we have a way better chance of creating the dream and the vision that you just stated. And then the third thing, this is great advice for anybody out there who's married or in a relationship, is make them the hero. Don't pitch them, collaborate. Spouses support, what they help build. So get them involved, make them the hero of this. Like when they want new floors or vacation, or explain to them how we're going to use our banking system and what benefits you're going to get out of their great idea. And, like that part of it makes me think of Stephen Covey and seek first to understand, then to be understood, right? So I don't think we do that enough, especially as spouses, especially men. We don't do that enough. So build trust with small wins is step four. Start with one policy, show them the results, so show how it's working. Confidence grows and resistance melts away. There'll be, if again, it kind of typically starts on one spouse or the other. And so you put a policy on, say, one spouse, right? And they see, well, gosh, if something happens to my spouse, there's all this death benefit, we have all this cash value. Well, wait a minute, I want a policy on me. Well, if I had a policy on me, would it be specific uses for that policy, or would it just be general? Would we be by cash flowing assets? Would we use one policy to buy things that we need, like cars and vacations and other major expenses? Or are they just kind of all one pool of money in the bank? So the big takeaway is infinite banking only becomes as powerful as it can be when both partners are on board. When couples learn together, everything changes. They stop fighting about money. They start to see the vision, and they stop pulling in opposite directions, and they start dreaming together about what's really possible. And again, I think about like my clients where one spouse goes to work and the other one stays home and takes care of the home. And again, that's a big job, and I wouldn't want to do it. And what they start to see is, but what they typically want is each other's time, right? In any relationship, we want each other's time. So when one partner is working sometimes 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and then when they're done working, they're stressed out. If you can show somebody, you don't have to wait 20, 30, 40 years, build up some nest egg, and hope you don't run out of money the rest of your life. You can do something different. You can create cash flow. You are smart enough. You don't need a Wall Street money babysitter, and you don't need the banks, and you don't need the government taking control of your money like a 401k or an IRA. You just don't. You need cash flow. Cash flow is king, and passive cash flow. Cash flow that's going to grow as this government keeps on debasing our money supply. So think about that vision. Any questions that you have regarding this or anything infinite banking, put in the chat. I wanted to talk about, I was just on a show the other day, and they were talking about tax strategies, right? And they asked me, how does infinite banking help in tax strategies? There's a lot of answers to that question, but one of the ways that it helps is that when you use infinite banking, you are growing your money, tax deferred, tax free if you do it right, if you don't ever let the policy lapse until your death, right? Then the money that you're paying, if you're paying money for business purposes, so you're taking the insurance company's money and you're loaning it to your LLC, okay? And the LLC is going to use it business purposes. Well, then that's deductible. You can deduct that interest that you're paying the insurance company because it's a financial institution loan. So if you think about that, how many things in your life do you get to not pay taxes on what you're earning and you get to deduct what you're paying? Not very many things, right? There's just not very many things in our world that we get to do that. Your money is growing tax free, and the money you're paying the insurance company to use their money, you get to deduct the interest. You get to deduct that expense off of your taxes. That's huge. Then let's say you're going to go put that money in real estate. Well, if I put it in real estate, there's a good chance that I can, especially now, use bonus depreciation. I can accelerate the depreciation of that property, and I can reduce my tax burden right then and there. I could go and invest in oil and gas and get some tax benefits there. So the assets that I buy can be tax advantaged. So again, my money's growing tax free. The money I'm paying is deductible, and then I'm using it in a tax efficient manner in the assets that I'm buying. I mean, that's the triple whammy. I mean, it's, again, I know I've told this story before, and again, I don't care if you love him or hate him. And, you could probably, if you've listened to me very much, you know which camp I fall in. But I was at someone's house and I was walking by the TV and they had the Today Show on. This is, I don't know, 7, 8, maybe 9 years ago now. And they said, Donald Trump is a terrible businessman. He lost over $1 billion in these 10 years, right? I don't remember the 10 years that they used. And I thought, oh no, the Today Show is going to tell everybody about depreciation and how you can depreciate what you're earning and take that depreciation off your taxes and literally pay no tax. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they're going to say that on national TV. I don't want everybody knowing that. And they didn't want to tell everybody that. They just wanted to bash Donald Trump. So that's fine. Bash him all you want. Just don't tell everybody all the money secrets that the wealthy people and people like you as part of this community and people like me that we use every single day to build our wealth. Now, why shouldn't everybody know it? Because if everybody knows it, they'll just change it, right? And then we'll have to come up with something else. The reason they don't change it is all the people making the laws are doing it. And I'm going to give you an example of why people vote the way they do and not understanding the tax code and what actually the people in office are doing. And I'm going to use this story. This is a story that Nelson used to tell, but I'm going to say it in a little bit different way. Okay, so let's say like the most crowded place that I can think of in Southwest Florida typically is the beach on a Sunday afternoon. So on a Sunday afternoon, I go down to the most crowded beach, probably like Barefoot Beach, and I grab a gun, and Nick Costco happens to be there. And I put the gun up to Nick's head, and I put my arm around his neck, and I say, give me all your money. And everyone at the beach is shocked, and they're appalled. Jim is robbing Nick. How terrible is that? Okay, so let's change the scenario. So I get there earlier than Nick. And before Nick gets there, I try to get everybody's attention on the beach, which wouldn't be really easy to do, but let's just say I could do it. And I say, okay, just want to explain something to you guys. In a few minutes, there's this guy, Nick, coming, and he's got too much money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rob him. I'm going to take his money, and then I'm going to share it with all of you. Now, when I rob Nick, the crowd at the beach is cheering me on because their perception is they're going to get some of that money. It's the same way in government and politics is people buy into the fact that, hey, we're going to take this person who has too much money, the quote wealthy, and we're going to tax them. We're going to take some of their money. They've got too much money. And when we tax them, we're going to give some of that money to you. We're going to have more programs and more benefits and more of this. Is that true? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The majority of Americans never see a nickel of that money. I'd say a penny, but they never see it. But you buy into it because you think, well, someone else has more than me, so they should pay, and I should get the benefit of that. That's the herd mentality. That's scarcity mentality. The abundant mentality is study what the rich are doing. Study it with your spouse so that you have the backup, so that you have the education, so that you can explain, honey, we are going to be our own bank. It's exactly the same thing that J.D. Rockefeller did. And J.D. Rockefeller, honey, said that the biggest hindrance to him becoming the richest man in the world was the banks until he became the bank. And that's all I want for us is to become the bank. Now, how's that going to start an argument? How is that person going to say, well, tell me about the life insurance contract? And is it a good investment? Is it, how much money do we have to put in our bank? They're not going to say that. They're going to say, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with a bank? Well, what are your dreams of doing with the bank? Well, I've always wanted to buy real estate. I've always wanted to own a business. I've always wanted to feel like I don't have to go and beg every time I buy a car. I've had 2 friends buy cars in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Okay. One using infinite banking, one leasing the car from the dealership. Okay. So let's go with the infinite banking. They walked in, they negotiated a price, they wrote a check, they asked the dealership, how much would you have charged me if I would have financed this or leased it? Got those numbers so that they could have that in their records for the IRS and charge themselves accordingly, right? Inside their banking system. And they were literally in and out within 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And this was my ex-wife. I helped her buy the car. I sent her to the right person, and it was clean. It was easy. They gave her exactly what Reddit said they should give her as a discount. It was between 9 and 10%. They gave her 10. I mean, it was smooth, right? They didn't try to sell her on ceramic coatings and Rain-X on the windshield and all of that. Didn't do any of that, right? Here's the tire and wheel package. It's the only thing that probably makes sense. Do you want that or you not? Okay. The other person, they were trading in a car that had some equity in their minds, right? And they were going to go from owning the car outright to leasing a car. No, that's super messy. And most people don't understand leases, and dealerships love leases because people don't understand money factors and residuals. And, you can change one little thing in there and it looks like you're getting a great deal, but you're not. They don't understand overages on miles, and people trade the car in when they're over on the miles sooner. All of these things that work in the dealer's advantage. So they thought they had $11,000 of value in the car, right? And they went through basically, and the lease payment came out to the same as the payment they had when they were paying the car off as finance, the current car. And she was like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. I have $11,000. And he goes, oh, I'm using that $11,000 as, so they were putting $11,000 down on a lease. And then she's texting me and I said, well, what's the money factor? What's the residual? All of these things. He won't tell me that. He won't. I said, leave. And she's like, well, I mean, they're the only ones that have the car I want. Leave. There's another car like that somewhere. And it was 3 days, literally 3 days of arguing, threatening, negotiating, frustration, losing sleep. And she finally leased the car. Now, I told her not to lease the car, as you can imagine, but she doesn't have an infinite banking system. So if she doesn't have an infinite banking system, then she does everything that just the way everybody else in the herd does. And they go to the payment. Well, this has got to be the best way to do it because it's the least amount of payment. Well, remember, who do you lease the car from? Because leasing a car is just renting it, right? You're just renting it for 2 or 3 years or 4 years, whatever your lease duration is. So who are you leasing it from? The owner. Why would the owner sell you that car for less than it cost them? Well, they wouldn't, especially the dealer or the manufacturer, right? They're not going to do that. The bank isn't going to do that. So that's what I should have said. The bank's not going to do that. So they manipulate it. You pay for the most expensive part of that life of that car, the first 3 years, and you're limited on how much you can use it. They have to be able to control that residual and the value. So leasing is always the most expensive way to have the use of a vehicle. And over 90% of all luxury vehicles are leased. So much easier to walk in there. You could lease it to yourself. You could set up a little leasing company, ChatGPT, an attorney. Anybody can help you set that up. And then you lease it to your company. So you get all the benefits that you think you're getting from leasing. And you walk in and you're in control. See, my ex-wife, when she walked in, because she has infinite banking policies, she was in control. I'm willing to pay this for the car. So I write you a check, I leave with the car. Simple. Not, well, wait a minute. I don't understand these. There's no confusion. There's no, there's no, oh, look over here, look over here, look over here. And all the time that, well, wait a minute, these numbers don't add up. And I don't even know how to do the math. Most people don't, to figure out, am I getting a good deal or not? Now, you come home and say, honey, you need a new car. This is what we're going to do. That's going to go really well with your partner. If it's you go in and you're stressed out and it takes 3 days and you lose sleep, there's an argument in there somewhere. I know there is. So anyway, thank you all for being here. Have a great weekend and Godspeed.